This summer, did you ever want to paint? Did you ever want to draw? Did you ever want to recreate anything at all? Well, now you can this summer in Pappyland.
Hey everyone, I'm Garrett Hallfish, and this week I really want to focus on something that's been grinding my gears for the past couple of years or so. The various industries, you've got the movies, you've got TV, you've got games, they're all focusing too much on nostalgia, trying to get too much of that hype just from remembering it from your childhood. I think it's created some great things, it's also created a lot of mistakes. I just wish we would just keep exploring new things, new ideas, keep innovating. So I really wanted to talk about some of the ones and some of the more recent ones that are really upsetting me and just share them with you guys. So first off, one that I don't really understand why it's coming out, Ghostbusters. The new one we have that's coming out, it's supposed to be this year, centers around a team of just women, which is perfectly fine. It seems like they're basically just gender swapping the franchise. Basically you have Kristen Wiig, you have Melissa McCarthy, those are the only two I know. And then the receptionist is now a guy. So you have Chris Hemsworth, which I know the ladies will like. But I'm not sure yet like why they're making this movie. Cause it doesn't look like they're really harkening that much to the old one. It's kind of just a reboot, and Ghostbusters wasn't something that I thought was like in need of becoming this huge franchise. I mean, you got the first movie, you got the second movie. They're both great in their own ways, but do we need more? And then the fact that after that one comes out, then we have another one that's supposed to come out. That's another all-male cast, but it's not going to be called Ghostbusters. I think it's supposed to be called Ghost Core. I don't know why. Like, why do they need to make this a franchise? I don't want it to become another Transformers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Like, it's just something that could have just stayed at rest, and people would have enjoyed it. You can still show your kids. It still holds up today. It just doesn't need to be redone. And then to find out more recently that there's going to be another toy made into a movie. We've got DreamWorks working on Trolls, which I don't know if you remember from your childhood, but just the little naked dolls with the jewels on their belly button and the crazy pink or blue or orange hair. Why is that being made into a movie? There's no story behind the Trolls. And then you look at the design of the Trolls. Some of them seem rather normal, but then others are completely different from what they used to look like, to the point where I don't even know if they're trolls anymore. I don't need another children's musical. I don't need another Alvin and the Chipmunks coming back. I don't need Smurfs coming back. There's too many of these nostalgia-based cartoons that are something that adults enjoyed growing up. But that doesn't mean a kid's gonna enjoy it now. I mean, sure they're doing all right, which is why they keep making them, but it's getting insane, and it's hard to watch. I know another one my sister personally enjoyed, Gem and the Holograms. She was obsessed with that growing up. And that came out, and it was not at all Gem and the Holograms, and it bombed, thankfully, but why do that? Why bastardize these franchises? I just don't understand. Movies aren't the only ones that are doing this to these franchises. You've got Netflix doing a great job with their shows, but they're also bringing back some shows that don't necessarily need to be brought back. You've got Fuller House, which I remember growing up after school, you'd watch some Full House just because it was on. I think there were some good stories, and you're like, oh, that's nice. But it's definitely not something that needs to come back, especially because after reading up more on it, first off, the Olsen twins are gone, which is understandable. If they don't want to do it, they don't have to do it. So they quickly write that character off. I think she's on a trip to New York or something. But the fact that the story basically takes DJ Tanner, who has been recently widowed, much like her father. I mean, it seems like an unlucky family. And funny enough, to make the title make more sense, the one that she was married to is Tommy Fuller. So you got a funny pun in the title. Yeah. So anyway, DJ, she moves in, and Stephanie, her sister, is basically the new Jessie. She's in a band and everything, but she's moves in with DJ to help raise the family. And then you also have Kimmy, who's the new Joey, who is raising her own kids, but also is still single and moves in with them. It's just, why? Like, why make the same exact story? I mean, you're gonna have some of the other returning characters. Just, it doesn't need to happen. Let them rest. Let them rest in the 90s. No one cares. I mean, I don't know. And you get the same thing happening with, like, on the Disney Channel, they have Girl Meets World, which I hear is actually doing pretty well, but I don't know, it's like, do we need a sequel to Boy Meets World? And then the X-Files are coming back, which I think is another one of just nostalgia things, but could be interesting. I didn't watch it personally, so I can't say, but I just don't understand why all of these franchises have to come back, and it's all within these past few years. It's getting crazy. Nostalgia doesn't just stop with those two. You also, with games, it may not be quite as obvious. Sometimes it kind of is. But nostalgia's gotten pretty bad in games. I mean, think of how many of those indie games look back at the pixel art from yesteryear. And I mean, sure, it does help that it's easier to run those graphics. But there's some times where you're just like, you can create your own art style. You can have 2D animation. They don't have to be sprites. You can make something pretty beautiful. You don't have to constantly be looking in the past to try to innovate. It doesn't always work that way. But classically, one of the worst contenders is, of course, Nintendo, who I adore. I adore Nintendo. But they're coming out with their next Star Fox game this year, Star Fox Zero. And that is a franchise I've personally not really enjoyed, minus the original one on Super Nintendo. I grew up playing that one, that's the one I know the best. All the others I'm awful at. I'm awful at the first one as well, but like it's pretty much been the same game over and over. I mean, Star Fox 64 was a reimagining of Star Fox on Super Nintendo. It was longer, more boss fights, more or less the same story, but there's a lot more story to it. It's pretty much just, a reimagining. And then that was ported again to 3DS. And then this one, Star Fox Zero, it's not a prequel, it's not a sequel, according to Nintendo. It is also a reimagining of the original Star Fox. So it just seems like they just can't figure out what to do with that character, and they're just making him do the same thing over and over and over again. The only games where he's really been different have not done very well. You have Star Fox Assault, you have Star Fox Adventures, both for GameCube. Adventures even started out as just a rare game, not even starring Star Fox, but Miyamoto's like, hey, that looks a lot like Star Fox. Put it in there. And those are the only ones where Star Fox really walks around on the ground. And then you have Star Fox Command on the DS, which was kind of cool. You draw out and it's a little more turn-based. That kind of changed it up. And I actually like that, even though it didn't do great with reviews. But it just seems like they always rely back on that original story to tell what Star Fox is up to. And I think that's a little bit ridiculous. I think they need to innovate, even with the chicken walker mode. That's not a whole lot of innovation, and I don't know if we really want that. I'm worried about Star Fox, so I guess we'll just have to see. Now that about wraps it up for this week. Let me know what you think. Are we getting a little too nostalgic? What franchises are you excited for and what you aren't excited for? I'm happy to hear. If you would like to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at NerdMuchCom. You can also follow us on Facebook via the description below. I'd like to thank you all for joining us again. See you next week. Now, don't you go telling me that Toy Story 4 is too nostalgic. Okay, Toy Story is the best franchise that has ever existed. Every single one has been knocking it out of the park as far as reviews go, and they've just been incredible. Everyone's its own story. This one's gonna be about Woody and Bo Peep finally getting back together. I mean, Bo Peep is back!